Okay, greetings my new friends. In this video, we're going to be working on giving structure to paper. So paper inherently doesn't have much of a structure of its own. It's very floppy, it's very loose. In our first exercises, we took a look at bringing some structure to paper. I think we did some things like this. And what we found was that the idea of the cylinder was a very useful idea. I guess we would have that here. So the idea of making a material into a tubular shape or a cylindrical shape, call that a cylinder or cylindrical shape, is that it gives the material some structure. It gives it the ability to stand up and gives it a bit of a backbone. So for this piece of material here, if I was to simply rotate it into a cylindrical shape here and use just a little bit of tape to help stick that together. Give it one more, just to be nice. So if I make that kind of cylindrical shape, this now can stand up. It has a little bit of structure of its own, but it's still very loose, it's still very floppy. So if we change this a little bit, so if we narrow the size of the cylinder, so the diameter of the cylinder, if we make that shape narrower in diameter, so this would be the diameter here, this distance. If we narrow that, we actually have more structure, so it's actually a little bit stronger. So what we're going to be doing in this assignment is to use elements like this cylinder to create line. So a cylinder will become a line, and then we'll use that line to build some structures. So if I have a cylinder here that becomes a line, I can then use those lines to create a kind of structural form, if you will. And what we can begin to do is to multiply out those lines and those elements to create things that have a lot more inherent structure. So we would call this a network. So we have a cylinder that becomes a line and creates a network. You already have some instructions about what your network is going to be doing, but this video is going to cover how to make proper cylinders that are of the appropriate size, and then how to start to bring them into these forms. So that's what I'll be doing here today. So I'm going to be working upon this surface. I'm going to be working with this kind of paper. It might be the case that you are actually working with newsprint or newspaper. Very, very floppy. I'm going to be working with this just so that it's a little easier to see what I'm doing in the video. So if this cylinder is okay, but not great, we're going to make something that's a little bit better. So if I were to take a piece of paper like this and roll it even smaller, and I'm going to use the help of a pencil to get me started here. I'll wrap that paper around, tuck that in, remove that, and continue to roll. Tape. I now have a line that's much stronger. It's pretty strong and stands up pretty well. So these are the types of elements that we're going to be working with to go from here to here to then our network. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to make a couple of more of these just quietly in the videos, just so you can see the rhythm of how that's going to happen. So I have a number of sheets of paper here. So you can use this. You can also just start to fold these a little bit and roll them up and do that way. That can work as well. Oops. So there we have that there. So in order to make anything really complex, we're going to need a lot of these. And part of this project is going to be that production, so the making of many of these. And I would recommend making these intermittently, so make several, and then start to work on that network a little bit, and then go back and roll and make some more. So I'm going to put that aside. I'm going to make one more. Oops, excuse me. And one thing that can be very helpful that can be challenging sometimes, is to go ahead and put a number of pieces of tape off to the side to have them ready as you make these elements here. So I'll just make a few just for the sake of the video. So again, you can use a pencil to help get you started in rolling, but you don't have to. I like that because it makes all of the sizes the same. It makes all of the diameters of the cylinders the same. And I find that that helps the resulting sculpture to just feel a little more consistent, but it does not have to be that way. One thing perhaps to think about as you produce these, and I have several of these here, is in which direction you roll the paper. You'll notice I'm going from one corner to the other typically. It's very difficult to roll from here to here. That's very, very difficult. So I like to start at a corner and then go to that opposing corner, diagonally. So anytime we're working three-dimensionally, making sculpture, making sculptural objects, there almost always is part of the making that is work or labor. And for this particular project, again, part of it will be producing all of these elements, as many as you might need. And I can't say exactly how many that's going to be. That will be entirely up to you. So I have a few of these already produced here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I just need 6. I was going to make a very, very basic kind of shape, a tetrahedron. And a tetrahedron is a triangle that is spatially connected here. So a tetrahedron basically means a three-sided shape or form. So this is the shape that we're going to be making just as an example to help get you started to go from here to something more complex. So in order to do that, I would like to decide how to make all of these pieces the same length. These all need to be exactly the same. And what I typically do is I'll just line these up and I'll use a ruler. Forgive me. I'll use a ruler here just to decide where to cut those and make those all the same. One thing you'll notice is that here in the center of the paper, there's a lot of paper wrapped up. That makes it very strong, very, very strong here. As we move out to the edge, there's not as many layers of paper. There might be 2 or 3 layers, and it's a little bit less strong. It's a little bit floppy. So I often cut and get rid of those areas. So if I've made my raw material here, these lines, I'll go ahead and I'll decide to move in. Probably right about here would be an okay place to go ahead and cut these. So I'll just go ahead and draw a line, remove that, and then I can cut those all either with scissors if you have those. We can also use a knife to do that. So in my case, I'm going to go ahead and try out my knife. I'll just see if that works. And if ever we're cutting multiple linear elements all at once, it is a good idea, it's a good idea to go ahead and cut against your ruler. Actually, I'm finding I don't really like that much. I'm going to go ahead and cut with scissors. Oh, that's much, much easier. So I can cut all of those here on this end. And then same thing over here. And I'll go ahead and cut these all on that end. So these now should all be the same length. And it's sometimes good just to check and see, make sure those are all the same length. I do want to mention that if during the main project, so we're going to start by, I'm going to make this in the video, but you're going to get right into this, your more complicated project. On occasion, we might be able to get more than one linear element from this single rod. So I just wanted to explain that really quickly. You'll notice when we cut the end here, when we cut that, it unfurls. It's gone. But if we would like to, we can add tape in certain places. And we then, of course, can cut and cut. And then we have more of those elements. So there are times where you might want to do that so that you can actually get 2 or 3 lines out of just one cylinder. So I want to move on now and talk about how to join these together and how to start to bring them into this into this kind of form here. So let's talk about joinery. Masking tape will be the material that we're going to use here. And again, what we're going to do is I'm going to form a triangle to start with, and then we'll build that up dimensionally. Let's first just start with this triangle though. So if I take these two elements, I'm going to go ahead and run the tape just like that over one side, hanging off the end. And I'm going to leave a little bit of space here. I think you can see that there. A little bit of space, and those can then hinge and move together. Pull that tape down a little bit. In the corners, the tape will always fold just a little bit. And then lastly, I just want to go around that far side of the joint to make sure that that tape stays there. So that would be a really good joint right there. That would work just fine. So let's do that again. So this wrap here simply holds the joint in place. It holds that tape in place so that it won't fail. Okay, so here, as long as all of our elements are about the same length, we'll be bringing this last joint together here. After a little while, you start to get into a good rhythm and you know what you need for each joint. On occasion, sometimes that is, you can kind of crush these two ends just a little bit to bring those together. There, that works good. And then bring that tape around the edge. So we have a thing. We have a triangle now. So this will be the base, and now we'll start to work upward in space to arrive at our tetrahedron shape. So we'll work similarly. If you can see this here, how this will fit together. So we'll work similarly there. That wraps around. Oops. We'll tuck right in there. Okay. And with all of the joints, we'll always go ahead and wrap that to be sure that that tape does not come undone. So initially, this is moving. This is very floppy, not very strong, but it should be strong enough to support itself there. So we'll get our number 2 in place and then our number 3. The tape will not always behave exactly as you would like it to. It likes to kind of crumple and crease. Go ahead and let that happen. Some of those things are okay. Those are maybe the truth of materials. And these are things not to really fret over or worry about too much. We do, however, want to make our joints nice and clean and tidy. So that's starting to come together now into that tetrahedron shape. I have one more of these to apply. So I want to be clear. This object that I'm making right now is just a sample. It's not what I want you to make necessarily, but it illustrates or shows us how structure or how strength can be gained from a material that has no structure of its own. Okay, so we're doing pretty well. What we need to do now is to connect, is to connect these three elements together here. So let's go ahead and just work on that. So I usually start just with two. Bring those together. You can also go ahead and tuck that third element right in there. And wherever three linear elements, wherever three lines are coming together, the joinery can be a little bit challenging. The joint can be a little bit tough. So we'll just kind of push that all down, kind of crush that down. And of course, this is good practice. We'll wrap each one of those there. So we now have a tetrahedron. So we have this dimensional shape here. It is very strong. You can push on it in all directions. You can be really hard on it, actually, and is very, very strong. From here, we can build upon this, right? So this could be kind of our starter shape or form, possibly, but it could also be a lot of different types of forms that you might potentially start with. In the assignment, you will be using this kind of construction method to try to build up a kind of network that's going to reference a organic shape, yet it's going to do that through geometry. So I want to show you just a little bit of a sample that I've made that goes just a little bit further. This is a form that I've built a little bit differently. You can see that it's not a very clear shape. It kind of goes in a variety of directions. And I will continue to work on this. This will continue to build and grow over time. And I love that blue tape. That's really nice there. Anyway, so this will be the kind of format that we'll be working in for this assignment. These will be the sorts of structures that are going to help us give a very loose and floppy material a kind of strength and resilience and backbone. And we'll be seeking to try to describe a form that is organic in nature with this kind of tactic. I wish you good luck